Thank you again for everybody for coming both near and far. Um, I'm the program manager of the Intellectual Developmental Disability Center, as well as the lab manager for the Center for Interdisciplinary Brain Sciences Research. How I sort of stumbled into helping with the creation of IDD-C is I was in a graduate school program a couple of years ago and needed to do a fieldwork assignment. And was talking to Alan about different ways that I could achieve that within the lab. And I know he had the idea for quite some time of not only doing the IDD-C, but having a disorder-specific clinic, specifically Fragile X. This came into fruition with my fieldwork assignment, and we started to have meetings and talking to people about what their level of interest is, what they were doing in their offices. And this was from basic science to clinical researchers to just providers and parents alike. And I think the project helped IDC sort of take flight and the beginning of what you see today and what will you continue to see. We've got a long way to go, but we've got a really good start already, especially with having the second symposium. So just to talk a little bit about what we did last year is we focused more so on the basic science and clinical research that was happening at Stanford for IDC broadly defined, and how that impacts and how it should work with the surrounding community. So we also had a community speaker come in and talk about what their needs are and how they saw the relationship developing with Stanford in regards to those. The inaugural event was really thought-provoking and inspiring, and it really kind of showed what was on the horizon of Stanford Packard IDD-C. As you can see, what our mission is just pulling together what already exists here. Like Alan said, we're not trying to recreate the wheel. It's already happening. It's more about creating a cohesive structure that kind of brings everything together so you can really see how the basic science translate into clinical outcomes that actually give changes and increasing the chances for a successful life for these families and kids that are impacted by IDD. So our first order of business last year was just to get a bunch of great people around to discuss, share, and collaborate on all the projects that are happening. Again, presentations ranged from cellular and molecular mechanisms to understanding pathogenesis and problem behaviors, which we'll hear a little bit about today. And additionally, just talking to the community about how translating that basic science into tangible clinical outcomes, especially as it relates to lifespan, was a kind of a big overlying topic of last year. Similar to this year's format, we're going to close with a creative brainstorming session facilitated by Dr. Sagar again, that really kind of got the juices flowing for really thinking out of the box about how to fill the gap between the basic science and clinical outcomes. Some examples of the discussion questions that we talked about last year was how community and educational resources are underutilized, especially with respect to employment and skill development, which really speaks to the lifespan aspect that we really want to make sure we keep focusing on. How you improve communication across providers to really help provide timely delivery and maximize their successful outcomes, and how the IDD-C can help these people achieve independence and the highest quality of life possible. And some of the ideas that came out from this was how we start to use the technology that's coming out to share these outcomes with our stakeholders. That's one way to bridge the gap. Emphasizing the importance of community engagement for early career faculty and scholars. So it's starting at the very beginning of their careers on how to engage the people that they're serving or trying to, the research is aiming to help. And just making sure that these resources are available to those that are underserved. That always seems to be the underlying tenet across all of these research projects and science that we're doing here is how you get it to the most people possible. So you may ask, so why is this important? Why is it happening at Stanford? First of all, IDD represents a really substantial portion of the U.S. population. And as the discussions have led us to discover is that unidisciplinary focuses are not going to be able to serve the lifelong needs of these individuals and their families. And as you'll see in the next slide, Stanford is a great place to jumpstart this because it's making incredible headway, especially in the field of Fragile X. So as of right now, we have 7 NIH grants that are specifically focused on Fragile X. The 3 of them represent sort of outcomes that have present day implications. So that would be the ones that are specifically working with human subjects at the time. That would be Dr. Hall's project, Dr. Reese's project, and Dr. Segar's project. The other 3 are providing what lies ahead. These are the basic research. They're looking at animal models or how, again, proteins are changing the way brain development is happening and things like that. And so they're sort of laying the foundation of what's to come. And I think that in and of itself represents sort of the span of work that's being done at Stanford and what we aim to do in bridging that all together and really communicating that to the families who we're aiming to help. So what's next? What lies on the horizon? Of course, the 3rd symposium next year. But also, we continue to discuss, we continue to collaborate and fundraise. We have to engage the community that we're working so hard to help and make sure that we're representing their needs. And I think finally, and probably the most important thing, is we continue to move forward. That is the theme of last year. That's the theme of this year, is how we continue to push the envelope to think creatively on how we can contribute to helping individuals with IDD achieve the best possible outcomes. And that's it.